Boom, we are back. Full house. That's right. The four Bs, bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit. Brought to you by Mr. All In, aka the Trillion Dollar Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ. Myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, it's a new year, but Mrs. No Show is still in 2024. No show. What's going on?
Everyone's
It
just,
just made me think, when was last time Miss No Show was actually on?
oh, okay. Yes.
it's, it's a good point. It was, I must have said this a million times, but I look back and went, oh, 60. Oh no, it's not 9, it's 68. That was the last time which is on. So what we're going
Did we
for
start in 21 or 22 in terms of the podcast?
oof, don't know about
Because it was during the pandemic, I'm sure. So,
2 years ago, so it looks
Just,
like it would have been 22.
yeah, it's just at the end, yeah. We could have, when we first arranged it, we were going to do it all in person because we were relatively close. And then we went to online purely just to go, it's actually easier this way anyway. But we
yeah,
could have physically done it. We're actually, I think, if anything, waiting to do it in person because it would be better,
yeah.
but we just wouldn't do it, would we? Because the dynamic's always better. You know, all the best podcasts, the people are talking to each other in a room, right? That is the
Yeah,
best format for a podcast. But it's like that's because that's their job, right? And they can spend an entire day doing a podcast, and whereas we're doing it at the end of a working day, or at least you guys are anyway. And so yeah, doing it online is just way better. But yeah, I think it was 2022. Yeah, so we're
yeah.
officially 2 years in now, just gone over the 2024, haven't we? So 2 years
That's
in,
it.
126 episodes. Not bad. I didn't think we were going to get to 10 when we started it. So
It's evolved a little bit, hasn't it?
yeah, it's got better. Definitely has got better.
Well, we're still waiting for the evolution of your hair transplant, but yeah, it's evolved. I mean, if things start to really go crazy and parabolic, that maybe that might show up. I don't know. I
It's
mean,
just
obviously,
not.
we saw each other over Christmas, and I saw your son with a full head of hair, and I thought, so that's what a young Doctor Evil 10% used to look like.
Oh man, I've got the
What?
picture. I've got
I
the
was going to
picture.
say it isn't much of a Bitcoiner thing to do, though, is it? Spending money on a hair transplant.
But when you reach your moon, you can do what the fuck you want.
Well, I have a lovely perm, something like that. I don't
Well,
Bring it back.
when you got your 6.15 Bitcoin, you got infinite riches, big titty bitches. You might need a little bit of hair to go along with that 6.15.
know. I just I'm not convinced. I would not convinced at all.
No, neither am I actually.
But yeah, far too tight for
And I'm not
that.
sure it'd do any good. I think you're just too far gone.
um, but talking about memes like a 6.125, we've got the first story of the week, which was which we have three greens and a red. So I know what this means. I hooked onto it, but so have you looked at the story?
I have indeed, yeah.
What does it?
So initially, I was just like, what does this mean? And I had to have a think about it. But yeah, it's the green, green, green in terms of profit, and then the down year. And jeez, it was a down year. I feel like once we started the pod, it was a down year. And yeah, we went into highs, but it has been a cold ass winter. And maybe, just maybe, we're about to see the turn of that. I mean, ultimately, if we were talking this time last year, we were in the doldrums and we were around about 13K. Those of us on the pod, of course, we were all buying in the 13K and continuing to do so, telling those that anyone that would listen to do the same, as opposed to doing the opposite and buying on the high. Anyway, yeah, that's the meme of
but it
the
tends to be
day.
the pattern. So we've had, what is it, 3 down years. Sorry, I was just getting a chart up then. So 2014, 2018, 2022. So your prediction is 2026. But the typical pattern which is seen is year one after the downwards, you see a slight trend upwards, but it's the second year. So we've had the first year, which is 2023 to 2024, is the one which is predicted to be the bigger year. So
Mm.
last time in 2020, it was 301%. 2016, oh, that's actually an anomaly, isn't it? So it was the third year. So 1,331% in the third year rather than the second year after the red. And then obviously the first time round, it was highly unpredictable because it was 9,900 on the first year, 5,507 on the fourth year. So things are a bit all over the place, but it seems to be that second year tends to be where you'll get up, and obviously with the ETF coming along, it is the prediction that we're going to see the boom year, but it could even be the year after that. So we see the ETFs start to take off this year, get the, say, 60, 70 grand, or maybe even 100 grand. And it's actually the following year when I suppose we called it the last cycle, the retail cycle, where you get the full on retail investment, where people kind of like play about this year. They go, oh, that's fun. But next year they start going, oh, there's gains to be had if you look at this pattern. Let's stick in this year. So maybe the following year when we actually see that boom.
Yeah, I think it's just it's just funny. Like Bitcoin Twitter is funny. I just saw these fucking 3 green circles and a red circle just getting posted in loads of replies. I'm like, I'm on Twitter like every day pretty much, and I don't know what you're talking about. Like this one's passed me by, and then you suddenly go, oh yeah, it's 3 green years, then a red. Like, oh okay. So but we don't. It's just this like secret language that Bitcoin Twitter likes to have, and just to embarrass the normies, right? It's just another bit of a layer of how long have you been here though? And so it's like a test on people, you just post just 4 fucking images underneath someone's tweet, or you just send it to them on a message. And they don't know what you mean. It's like, you're not a real Bitcoiner. You're not real. You're still coming in. You're still a normie. You're not orange pilled yet. But no, I think it's this tends to happen. I've seen this happen. I think on the last cycle as well, everyone pulls this out. Obviously, where you have depends which way you put the dots, right? I think the way people are putting the dots at
Correct.
the moment is like the red dot comes first in a way in this kind of where we are in this cycle now, because it's like we've had the bear market, we've had 1 green dot of recovery, which was last year, and now it's the next 2 green dots where we normally break all-time highs and it's the fucking good times, right? So now they've got 2 years of good times ahead to enjoy. So everyone's like pumped, it's like, because you want that recovery. There's always like after every red dot, you go, Jesus Christ, that was bigger than we've ever seen before. Are we coming back? There's always that slight element of doubt. Like, have we really like wrecked everybody? Is we still got enough people alive, right? Everyone's looking around like we're not all bust, right? And then we have a
But it
green
seems,
nice big green dot afterwards. You're like, we're still here. Let's
I was
fucking
thinking
go.
about this one because you've got the kind of like more retail investors. So when I say retail investors, I don't know if that's a correct term for it, but like commonplace
Yeah, that's right.
moms and pops. It's open to the boomers, whoever else.
Number go up
So
by it.
yeah, so it provides like a bit of stability, but I suppose it's not stability, isn't it? It's not going to go back down. It's just going to be back level. It's going to have its kind of like bottom again. So our bottom this year, well, this cycle was 13 grand. The cycle before it was 3 grand, and so on. So we're going to have a bottom where it kind of sticks at going forwards, and it's going to be higher. So I suppose it's like the stability is going to be that you are going to get the downwards trajectory because it is an investment ultimately at the moment. And so people are going to pull out when they need money. They're going to pull out because of fear, or whatever else it is.
But not even just that. I mean, ultimately, again, it's going to be for some people, they may pull out because they want to take a bit off the top and so forth, or for them, that's enough to ride the next 2, 3 years out until the next one. I was quite surprised actually when we hit the what is now seen to be the bottom of 13, that it was 13. I actually thought it was going to be lower than 13 the way we were going, because we were going down and down for a long time.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it was, again, we were buying at that point, but yeah, I thought having been to 3, 13 seemed quite high.
Yeah, well, this cycle did break the model because every previous bull run, the red dot of the bear market afterwards never went below the previous cycle's all-time high. So the previous all-time high was 20K.
Yeah,
And so everyone thought 20K is rock solid. We have never been below 20K. It's not happening. We fucking smashed straight through that. So that's when everyone suddenly went, oh shit, we've gone below 20K, tumbled down the teens. That was when everyone went, well, now 10K's falling. And that was when they were wrong at that point. Like literally the market was wrong twice. It was
yeah.
20K is never breaking. It broke. Okay, now 20K is gone. 10K has to break. Didn't. Literally, Bitcoin is a trader's nightmare. It follows so many patterns, but when you actually look at the finer detail and on the big moves, it changes every cycle, and it breaks
Yeah.
things. It's just like earning cheap Bitcoin by longing it or shorting it on very obvious like indicators that have worked the previous 3 cycles before. Usually you'd think, oh, that's just you're just printing Bitcoin, right? You might as well almost gamble because Bitcoin's so predictable. No, it's not. It looks like it is at a high level, but when you get into the nuance, you'll get wrecked. And that's why
Yeah,
don't trade,
Well,
just model.
this is why you also don't do the what's it called, DeFi.
yeah, staking and DeFi.
Yeah, like it's just like DeFi is all about gambling or it's about price appreciation. Like you said, you can't model it. So therefore, why would you do it? You know, you're gonna lose your Bitcoin if you piss around with these games. Play what is it? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah. Uh,
Absolutely.
but yeah, we have
All
to.
right. Well, I guess that also leads us on quite nicely into the next story as well, in terms of crossing the chasm. So, for anyone that's new and just tuning into the podcast, so all of the stories are linked in the show notes, but essentially, we've got a picture of what is known as, I guess, the trajectory of Bitcoin, or no, sorry, tech enthusiasts, and where Bitcoin is in this world of technology. So at the very beginning, you've got innovators, and then it moves on to visionaries, and in between visionaries is what's called pragmatists. And we feel as though right now we're on that chasm of moving from those early days of Bitcoin, as Bitcoin just recently celebrated its 15th year, going on to pragmatism, conservatives, and skeptics as well, or in terms of early majority, late majority, and the laggards as well. So, what do you guys think about this? Do you think that right now
I,
we were in the early adopters camp, moving into the early majority camp?
I think the early majority might come if the ETM's approved. So that's really what happens over the next month. Because I think that really puts it into the mainstream. You know, we talked about the retail cycle, which was 2 cycles away. We talked about the last one, which was things like company balance sheets, and then also, um, well, El Salvador taking
Countries,
it.
yeah, country adoption.
We're just browsing Mr. All-In's Twitter now.
Yeah.
But the thing which really throws me is, or rather, I think discredits it, is the percentages below. Because if you're going to go with those percentages, you would say that's as a world population. Because ultimately, the aim of Bitcoin is to displace the US dollar. So, has 13.5% of the world's population adopted Bitcoin?
No, not even close.
Yeah, so it put us back in innovators really. But I think if you take away the percentages, the curve's probably not wrong. It's just the fact that various people won't be adopting it until it's, you know, fully fledged.
Yeah, it's one of those where
Yeah.
I think you're spot on, really. I think it's almost Bitcoin's a bit of a unique one, isn't it? Where maybe there's a lot of people so close to buying. We are in that early adopters because like the majority of people have heard of Bitcoin right now, and
Mm.
there is 200 million people estimated to be proper Bitcoiners in the world. That isn't anywhere near 13.5% of the population, right? Because what is it, 8 billion? So that means you need 800 million. Well, basically, it's a billion, isn't it, really? For the 13. You pretty much need a billion users to cross the chasm as money. But bizarrely, once the ETF is approved, does 34% of the money then have almost, well, these are adding up, aren't they? Yeah. So you're basically at roughly 50%. Does 50% of the money
Yeah.
have access to Bitcoin at that point and has brought? It's like, well,
I
they
think
have access.
I think
They haven't
I
brought
think
yet.
potentially we cross the border into pragmatists past the 13.5 once we get the ETF. So literally 14% of the population being in some form of Bitcoin puts us into the pragmatists. So
Yeah, that's the
and then
tweet, isn't
obviously
it, from
up to
Dr. Bitcoin,
34.
Yeah.
Because that's Dr. Bitcoin's tweet, which yeah, he's basically going where we're waving goodbye to the early adopters phase as we cross the chasm into the early majority. It's been a pleasure, ladies and
Kind
gentlemen.
of throwing this back to like your wedding, which we've obviously talked about quite a lot, and you gave the Bitcoin standard to a lot of people. A lot of people promised to read it. Out of all the guests, how many have actually read it now?
Yeah, I haven't checked really, but I haven't had any positive comments. I've asked a couple of people, and the
Like,
answer's
has
been
your dad read it?
yeah, yeah, he actually
Oh, he
did.
has.
Yeah, I think. Wait, what did he say over Christmas? He said he'd started reading it. I think he's read like half of it, which straight away makes me think maybe read 4 pages. Who knows?
I was going to say, literally, once you read the first 50 pages or 100 pages, I think it gives such a good understanding, but it all follows on.
Yeah,
And
you
my whole
can't
point
almost
about,
put it down, can you? Like why wouldn't you not
yeah,
finish it? Like,
because I was just like,
Mm.
I was reading it, I was just going, "You're a dickhead, Dr. Evil." I was like, "You're a fucking dickhead. How did you not get this?"
yeah,
I
And
find that with what we were talking about just earlier on, in terms of just the white paper itself. So you don't need to read a full book. If you actually just read those 8 pages or a single page, if you're buying the display off the white paper, and you actually read it from start to finish, it makes complete sense.
yeah, but that's now. That's, you know, you're
Well,
kind of
the
like,
white paper was came out in 2008.
yeah, but that
Before,
was for the absolute minority got in through the white paper, whereas, you know, for
yeah,
me and you, we got in through ultimately the Bitcoin standard. So if you put the white paper
yeah,
in front of you instead of the Bitcoin standard, would it have the same impact?
don't know, don't know.
Yeah, and I'm
I
just
mean,
doubtful.
ultimately, we've gone through this many a time, haven't we? Where we think, what is the ultimate orange pill to others, and it depends on what the other person's financial literacy is like.
Yeah,
Ultimately, to be able to
but
gauge the impact of how simple the concept actually is, and to realize, oh fuck, I've messed up
yeah,
here.
but I feel
Ultimately,
like,
like, yeah, I should have got
but
this already.
but I feel like Saifedean kind of like broke apart the lie about fiat currency and kind of going, this is what it should
Yeah,
be.
you
You
need
know,
that.
this is what money is, and I kind of went, this answered all the questions which I've been searching for when I've been going. I don't understand what fractional reserve is. I don't understand what these investments are. I don't understand why I've got to invest all this. It just didn't make any sense to me, and then it kind of made all the sense. But kind of putting it back was I was asking Mr. All about his wedding because the fact is you gave all these great gifts. Like it's one of my favorite books now because I'm kind of going. I've got a signed version of Mr. All
Yeah, absolutely.
insulting me for like literally a whole page. And everyone's like, yeah, I'm gonna read it. And it's like you had this massive Bitcoin themed wedding. You know, Mr. Allins done quite well off Bitcoin after he had a really good professional career as well, which he packed in because, well, of Bitcoin ultimately. But then these people kind of go, yeah, I'll read about it. No, I won't. I'm not going to read it.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, but then when we come in this ETF and everyone goes mad about it within the next year, maybe that's the point when we go, maybe I'll read this book. And then they'll buy it when it's its all-time high of 200 grand. And instead of buying like 2K's worth of Bitcoin when they could have bought it, say 25, they're buying it 200 grand. So they're getting a much smaller slice. So they're getting 100th of a Bitcoin versus a 10th. So I think some people, I just feel like you just can't help some people.
But I guess maybe that you're coming at it, and it's very difficult not to, with an early adopter's mindset on others. It's always easy once you know the answer, right? And I guess Mr. All-In was equally thinking very similar of us when he was in that early, the innovator stage, stroke early adopter stage, when we were lagging behind as well. And what's also interesting is probably the fact that there's invisible ink in your copy of the Bitcoin Standard, which kind of berates you even more throughout the book that Mr. All-In probably has done as well.
I think on every single page,
turn the lights out and just get the magnifying glass.
Every single page is probably just a dick pic.
Yeah. You're just yet to see that. That's all. Just put the black light on it.
Yes. So, like, in answer to this one, I think, we could approach it. We're not there yet because it insinuates that, 13.5 people at the bare minimum have taken on Bitcoin, and then up to 34. So I think we're still in innovators, early adopters, maybe, and we can maybe hit early majority when the ETF gets underway, when it becomes part of everyone's pension.
And then I still think really, really early, because ultimately you were talking about the ETF a lot, but we're only on to our fourth halvening as well. And I feel like maybe if in the course and the life of Bitcoin, it actually has to be the life and cycle of the average human. So it has to go a lot longer in terms of an actual piece of technology. So, Bitcoin is only in its 15th year. And then equally, it's going to have to also add a lot more.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? It's I think we'd have a lot more people in if there wasn't the whole crypto space, which to a certain extent that was the reason why I gave out the books, probably almost threefold. It's like, number one, I was looking for something to give anyway, so everything else was just crappy, and then that was a great thing that I really loved, and I thought people would actually appreciate, and maybe it's something they keep, whereas everything else was just going to be gimmicky. So I'm like, I want to do something proper. So that was the main reason. But then the other two reasons really was, hopefully I do orange pill some people. But then secondary, it's, well, who knows when I orange pill them, or when they start to look into this more. And the fact that I've given them the best book you can possibly have and put it in their hand and signed it for them, and hopefully they put it on a bookshelf somewhere. So hopefully it just stops them shit coining, right? It stops them going into crypto. There's so many people, right? They get into Bitcoin. Their first time, their ego comes and they go, "Oh, I'm too late." And then some dickhead on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram will tell them, "If you got a problem with money, hate inflation, too late to Bitcoin, are you? Buy my shitcoin. It's even better, faster." And they will fall into that. And hopefully, like the people that I know now that came to my wedding, when that message comes into their head, they might go, "Hold on, I'll read the Bitcoin Standard." And if they do, it will save them from that scam, and they'll save a couple of years of their life getting scammed and losing their money before they find Bitcoin again at the end. So I think that's why adoption's so slow. I think people come into Bitcoin, think they're too late, go in shitcoin for a couple of years, get wrecked, have to build up the money, then they end up Bitcoining properly. It's like, Jesus, that's a 5-year onboarding once you're in. Like that's not counting the fact that most people just say no to the whole space, like for years and years.
Also, you kind of get the people who are bombarded and they look into mainstream media of, you're boiling the oceans, it's
Yeah.
tulips, even
Well, they're
though
the ones
tulip
just
was a
saying no
single
and bouncing
cycle,
off.
you know. Am I like, oh, this is nonsense? We need to have fiat money because it stimulates the economy, it funds terrorism. You know, you've got all the different things. So yeah, but I think hopefully it'll set some people up for when the ETF and the halving happen. But I was just thinking, actually, didn't your brother, wasn't he speaking to someone who worked at the event who got into Bitcoin off the back
Yeah.
of?
Yeah. Yeah, the
So we
wedding
got one
organizer,
there.
the Evening Do, is a Bitcoiner now. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a benefit, and I suppose you're probably right. Let's see what happens over next year because that'll be very interesting to see if anyone adopts it within the whole wedding.
Yeah, it's almost like the next five, you
I
know.
would also go back to what you were saying there of the fact people will go through or have to go through the change curve and answer all of the questions, even though we've gone through all of the FUD. But just the ability of thinking this one is the one, because ultimately human nature just makes you think, no, we're just skeptical. And obviously, that's what's kept us alive for all these years. So naturally, people will be prone to scams and look at shitcoins even further ahead of then just coming back to Bitcoin as well. And I mean, you showed and shared a scam email, Mr. Orlin, earlier on that wasn't really that bullish, talking about 80K for Bitcoin.
Oh no, that
But
was me. I got a
was you?
signal.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got a
sorry, yeah,
signal message. And so I got a signal message. I was like, what the fuck?
yeah.
But it's still
But it
bullish
wasn't
in most
really
people's
that big.
eyes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And 80K is to most, or ultimately, it is. It's life changing, isn't it?
Yeah. Going on to like life changing, the next topic, the ultimate Bitcoiner question. So this is what's his name? British Hoddle.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
he's talking about after 2025, I'll be buying 3 homes around the world. Basically, where should I buy? So he talks about birth rates. He talks about rates of marriage, and he's looking for people's advice and also tax. So looking for low or tax exemptions. So it's where are 3 livable places? My automatic thought about this was, well, there's a Bitcoiner. Why the fuck would you be buying 3 homes? Like literally, think about how much time you spend in each at home. Why not just buy one and just holiday in places?
Yeah,
Maybe it's just me.
I think he's quite wealthy. He's just gone, it's the guaranteed places, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
and
he
if
has, at
he's
least he is acknowledged. Like usually when people go, oh, I've got 3 houses, it's like that's equity. He actually says, they're liabilities.
mm.
yeah,
At least he admits that.
so it sounds like he's youngish, single, maybe. Maybe that's
I think
like
he's
his angle.
I think he's in his 40s.
It doesn't sound like he has a family, is what I was guessing from this.
No, he doesn't.
So he kind of like picked where he wants to go. And I was kind of, if you're in that kind of situation, why not somewhere like El Salvador?
Well, he's got that, hasn't he? So his things, he wants birth above 2.1 babies per woman, which basically because he wants an inflating population. He doesn't want a dying population. He wants a 35% or higher marriage rate, which he says is for potentially a settled population. And then he wants it to be tax beneficial as well. So obviously, most Western countries, when you are buying things with your Bitcoin, will tax you 40% or 20% plus. But there's plenty of places that will do 0% on your tax of cap gains. Plenty of territories for that. But can you get a high marriage rate? No. Or can you get an inflating population? No. And that's where El Salvador drops. So the birth rate in El Salvador is 1.8, which essentially said it's a dying country, is the way he terms it on here. I think that's because technically he's right, but because if you carry on at 1.8, right, you end up with no people living there if you fast forward 200 years. And I guess what he's asking here, like, it's a real long-term question where he's looking to go, I really want to settle for generation after generation after generation. So I am thinking hundreds of years time frame, because I want my children to be able to grow up here, have families, have a job, and then they have kids and they not need to leave. Whereas I think the problem with El Salvador is the most likely thing is like the parents can go there with their kids because the parents are kind of done, right? They're happy with their life. They've done most of what they wanted to do. They probably had their career. They're moving over to El Salvador, but then their kids are going to grow up and they might want to do something, right? They want to do sports, they might want to dance, they might want a career in tech. Can they have that in El Salvador, or are they going to have to leave for work? And so if the population is growing, then there's a chance that the wealth that Bitcoin brings and all that kind of stuff will change it. But it's an interesting
Isn't
question,
it?
right? And it's a question that
Yeah,
I get
it's
asked on here
massive.
numerous
Well,
times.
I was going to say technically, the UK's population is growing. It's just not
Yeah,
due
through
to birth rate, is
immigration,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, because it's one of those ones like we saw this stuff. If you actually look in the media, that
That's why he says
we
birth
don't.
rate. He doesn't say
Yeah,
population growth. He says birth rate.
Mm,
yeah, because in the UK, like we're not conceiving because we're waiting and waiting because everyone's so poor. Then you've also got problems around conception because of poor diets, high stress, poor sleep, and poor health. And as well as the affording question, I think the same in the US as well, which immigrants flew across the border because they need the expanding population in order to grow GDP and also inflate their currency, and then also keep the wages down. So you have got that, and I'm kind of going, is it going to be literally Africa and like parts of Asia where you're going to get an increase in birth rate?
The moment I was just reading through the replies, the strongest answer seems to be Serbia at the moment.
wow.
Serbia, that surprises me, but Serbia's in there. I would have thought that was declining.
Mm. And apparently,
Maybe that's on the
growth.
up after what happened in Serbia, because I believe it was war torn previously.
Yeah, it's part of Yugoslavia in the early 90s, so there would have
Yeah,
been, people over a certain age would have been killed in the wars and then, yeah, really ripped down.
yeah.
It's one of those I think I would add on to his requirements there, not -10 permanently. Because
I was going to say the weather as well, but then we're really starting to get into the
all I would
pedantics
say
of
is just
things.
no extreme. Like, well, if there is extreme weather, it needs to be like for less than 10% of the year, right? Whereas isn't Serbia
Mm,
like isn't it winter there all the time? Yeah,
I
it's
think
like
you just struggle with this one at the moment. I think, on a separate conversation, I speak to one of my friends and he's on about the UK being in the shit, but pretty much every country in the world's in the same situation. The fiat currency or fiat Keynesian um, economics is collapsing, and it's obviously collapsing. It's just how long it takes, and so I think it affects all these things. So we're getting fake food. We've got currency which doesn't hold its value. Everyone's getting poorer. Nothing's settled, and it affects all these things. Like marriage isn't as valued, and then the diet's poor, hard to conceive. I think it's just everything's very hard, and then the governments are scrabbling around for money, so they're putting more and more taxes up.
you know what? For whatever
it,
reason, I thought Serbia was near Russia. It's nowhere freaking near, is it?
It's
It used
nearer Italy, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and Montenegro is just off the coast of Italy, well, across the Adriatic Sea, Montenegro, and then Serbia borders that. Then you got Kosovo and near Bosnia, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, all surrounding. So yeah, so the climate in Serbia is moderate. So in my head, Serbia is Russia, right? It's just fucking freezing.
yeah,
It isn't. It's
I don't
much further south than I thought. So
I
Serbia
don't
just
know what it's like as a country. I've got no idea what it's like. So I think all the kind of like Balkan countries are meant to be nice, but I don't know what it's like saying like crime, what's it like in those kind of statistics.
I
the
don't
crime
know if
rate.
it's one of those things because obviously I listen to a lot of podcasts on Bitcoin, but this is kind of like a question which I've seen answered previously on YouTube, but it's more from a where should I go when World War III happens, as opposed to the good of when Bitcoin goes to hyper Bitcoinization, and having the ability to up and leave and live somewhere. And one of the key points was education as well. So whilst he's got the marriage rate and so forth in terms of the tax rate, education is a big one as well.
Just having a look at crime rate. So
That's a good shout.
top Venezuela, Papua New Guinea, Afghanistan. Oh, this is just the top 10. Haiti, South Africa. I didn't realize South Africa was so high. Honduras, Trinidad and Tobago, Syria, Guyana, Peru. And I think it used to be El Salvador was leading the pack at one point, wasn't it? So that seems to have turned it around quite quickly. I'm just seeing if I can get anyone. What, 33 worst or best?
Worst.
Oh God. Oh yeah, here we go. I've got it doesn't have rankings though, it just has them in order. That's annoying. Jamaica, Somalia. Oh, Somalia would have thought was higher. Brazil, Nigeria, Angola, Namibia, Burundi, Argentina. So you have got a lot of that's really interesting is El Salvador is classed as better than Argentina and Brazil now.
Once upon a time being the number one.
Yeah, it looks about 20th or so in the crime index. But I can't be exact. And then what's rated top? Let's have a look. Oh no, there's just a load of blanks where they haven't got the statistics. Qatar, United Emirates, Taiwan, Oman. So a lot of the Middle East, I think, where they just have zero tolerance.
Yeah,
which is really interesting because everyone's criticised El Salvador's approach to gangs. And the fact is that somewhere like Qatar, United Emirates, they just wouldn't tolerate that at all, would they? They'd all be locked up and killed. So the fact they're following something which has got the lowest crime rate, very, very interesting. So it all seems to be Middle East, but I'm guessing Middle East may have laws which this person doesn't appreciate.
Yeah.
That's the thing, like low crime rate is good, but if just speaking out against the current prime minister or president gets you beheaded, then that's not good, is it? You know, you're now living
exactly
in an environment where you could get killed for a tweet. So you don't want zero crime, really. If anything, it's almost like a healthy economy has crime in it. It's almost like there's a good balance between people working hard, but not everyone could be at the top. Some people want to cheat and they're going to do crime, right? You want to see a bit of crime, because if you don't see any crime, it's like, right, they're either hiding it and they're lying, or everyone is so terrified of even just stealing a freaking Mars bar from the shop because they are so totalitarian that you will get killed or prosecuted to such an extent that it's far too strict. So, and that's why Dubai's mentioned in here, because Dubai is very good on, it matches all this. It's a growing economy. It has a very high marriage rate, and the taxes are virtually zero for cap gains. But it's Dubai.
Because that's when you start to get into the semantics of like Dubai does tick all of the boxes, but Dubai is Dubai in terms of it's very fabricated and kind of fake, as opposed to
totalitarian as well. Like it's
exactly.
You're living in the prince's area, aren't you? His rules go.
Yeah.
No alcohol, no sex before marriage. Being gay is illegal. So if you're a gay Bitcoiner, can't go Dubai, can you? And there's certain things like I wouldn't want to live somewhere like that, where the people
Dr.
in power.
Evil 10% looked a little uneasy when you said that.
We've been there together, and I tried to hold his hand going down the street, and he shit himself. He thought, we're going to get arrested. I was like, baby, don't be like that.
prancing around in your skin tight shorts. I mean, we've seen the footballers have gone across to Saudi, and they've all started to try and come back now, haven't they? Jordan of Arabia, Bobby Firmino, they're all trying to run back to the UK or some other countries because it is, I think it's a fabricated country. They're jetted around in the private jets. They're putting their chauffeur-driven cars. They're taking back to their compound. They're taking to the training ground. They're taking to the pitch. They can go to a mall. They can go to a high-end restaurant, but they don't see anything. It's literally they're in a bit of a
I
prison.
went to the weekly Friday public beheading and hand chopping.
Yeah, just for like the local woman that's like being raped and gets stoned to death for cheating on her husband.
Yeah.
For being a hell.
Like, bruh, like, Jesus Christ, too far. Like, what the hell are we doing here? So yeah, I think the summary of that story is we still don't know, do we? It's very hard to pick a place.
It sounds
I'm
like
glad
Serbia.
that Serbia is now on the list. And actually, there's one last point on that story was what did ring true for me and something that resonated with me was the fact that British Hoddle there, he's tried to do the nomadic life, which I also tried to do. But what I realized as I was traveling around, I'm just not, I can't go from place to place, always living out of a bag. Even when I travel, I tend to just, I skip around a country purposefully, a week here, a week there, a week here, purely to go, which is the best place. I don't want to just settle in the first place I just land in and then not know if it was a better place. So I'll purposely go somewhere on the coast, somewhere in the city, then speak to people and go, where else is good? Right, I'll live there for a week, there for a week. And then just basically pick and go, right, now I feel like I know this local area a little bit better. I'll straight away go, right, I'm going to do a 3-month lease on that place. And without me even realizing it, it's like, I'm not being a nomad now. I'm kind of moving in to this place. And whereas, and because in reality, like the nomadic lifestyle is not for me. I do like routine. I like knowing where my stuff is. I like to know where I'm sleeping tonight, what my shower, how it works, where my food is. I like, where my laptop is. I like everything sorted. And if I don't have that, I'm always thinking it through. So
Yeah.
when I was going from week to week, for me, they were like, okay, that's fine. But straight away, I'm not sure what I'm eating tonight. I'm not sure I'm sleeping. All these things are in flux, right? Because everything's new. You're somewhere new and you're figuring everything out on the fly. And then, so I would always crave going, right, settle down as quickly as you can, learn this country, find the best place, and just live there for 3 months and just figure out the best place. If not, move somewhere else, do that for 3 months. And well, some people love being nomads. And the reason why he's done this tweet is obviously we know that like it's very hard to know. It reminds me of when lockdown was happening and I didn't know where to go. Like, where can I go to avoid lockdown? Because I might as well, if I'm going to move to a country that gets locked down when I move there, I'm now in rented accommodation in a country that maybe I don't even speak the language and still locked down. I might well as not have left the UK. So I eventually found Sweden and was right, but that took 6 months to know it. Everyone had to lock down and reopen just to know which country wasn't going to break. So in that instance, Sweden was literally the only option. Everywhere else locked down. And we're basically in that cycle now with Bitcoin, right? Where it's like, who's going to be friendly to Bitcoiners? And there's some countries that are showing their hand a little bit, but you go, yeah, but if you're put under pressure, does your friendliness go away? Because I don't want to set down roots somewhere that the goodness goes. And
So you've had El Salvador, and obviously it's a developing country, so it's dipping population. You've had Central African Republic, which then went back on it when it's made Bitcoin a currency. Then you've had, was it Prospero, something like that, which is the Thomas port somewhere off South America. Then Madeira, I think there's an island in Croatia, which we covered on the pod at one point. And there's little bits everywhere, which are like ports and like principalities. But like I said, if push came to shove, they may have to follow their like leading country.
Right. Well, it's a great topical debate. Certainly one for us to continue to monitor as things get better and better, I'm sure. So the next story is an interesting one, as always. And someone tipped Satoshi's Bitcoin wallet, 26.9 Bitcoin. That's a lot of change, right now.
It's almost £1 million.
That's like saying thank you for obviously taking me to this stage with a lot of gratitude, right?
Yeah, but my whole point about this is like, if it's just a tip, so let's ignore the theory behind it. It's like, I don't know, sacrificing one of your cows to God. It's just like it's lost, isn't it? Like
Oh, it's
Satoshi's wallet
lost.
is not used. You're not getting anything back. Satoshi's not going to come back and wank you off for it. It's literally it's literally great. You've tipped Satoshi. Now you can go and tell all your friends that you tipped Satoshi. And it's just I just don't get this practice. It's like praying to God or whatever. I just think it's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why I like the next linked tweet that I put on it with a theory as to why this 26.9 Bitcoin is sent. And someone said, well, this Predator, his name is on Twitter. I think somebody, probably nChain, who doesn't like Craig Wright, owes him money, but instead of writing him a check, just sent it to the Bitcoin addresses he claims to control to troll him. Now that's funny, right? Imagine owing Craig £1 million, and he's just going on and on. You freaking hate him, and you go, you know what? Legally, I have to pay him, and he's told me he has access to these keys. He's the head of. He's invented Bitcoin. He's telling me he's Satoshi for years. She's like, you know what, Craig? Pay you in Bitcoin, yeah? That's fine. He's like, oh yeah, fine. Pay me in Bitcoin. I'll send it to your address. He's like, which one? Your Satoshi one, mate.
Yeah.
The ones that you just told me you have the keys for. There's your £1 million sent. So it would be hilarious because the person who's obviously sent that did lose £1 million. They lost their 26.9 Bitcoin, right?
But
and
if they had to
technically,
pay him anyway,
Craig can't claim he hasn't got it because Craig has legally said he has it, and he's like, "Oh, fuck!" But I'm trolling. I'm lying. I don't have access to these keys. So I think everyone, whenever Craig gets a job, nChain should send all of his salary to the Satoshi address and go, "We're just paying your Satoshi, right? So we'll just pay the Satoshi wallet. Collect it whenever you want. You got the keys."
Yeah, it'd be beautiful if that's why. But you know, if that's the case, I fully back it. But if it's just some idiot just tipping Satoshi, you know, stand by my comments. It's just fucking idiotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was someone. Yeah, we can do potentially that story next if you want and skip a few. But I did see the theory of this going. What someone's done is because there's new legislation in the US now, which straight away is assuming that Satoshi is American, which he certainly isn't. Just from the way he typed and his grammar, it suggested he was British, but who knows? That could be a double bluff, and he is American, just wrote British, super smart. But was the new legislation in the US about this? Every transaction over 10K has to be declared the sender and receiver. So some moron legal person went, "Oh, this transaction is to do with that." So now that Satoshi has received this, he has to register this with the IRS and basically say that who the sending receiver was. So it essentially doxes Satoshi. You just go, bro, like what are you talking about? That doesn't make
The
any
wallet,
sense.
the wallet hasn't been touched for how many years? Is it the 15 or is it?
Yeah, 15 years. Yeah,
yeah. So he's barely going to come out and go, "Oh, I've got $1 million here. I'm going to come out for your 26.9 Bitcoin."
I know he
It's a
literally
bit
has
of
$1 million Bitcoin in there, like $1 million Bitcoin,
yeah.
and he's
But
selling with them at 26.
yeah, that 26 is going to tip me over.
That's
I've got a
what
different.
will make me dox myself. Yeah.
See, I've got a different theory on this. I think there's a common consensus amongst Bitcoiners that it's just regulation coming in, trying to govern Bitcoin as usual, trying to clamp it down. But my kind of view on this is, well, you have to report transactions which are over 10,000 in fiat in America. You know, that is the amount, and it's been the amount since, was it the 70s or 80s when we brought in the money laundering regulations? So if you're moving, so they were, you know, organized crime used to move over 10 grand around because they get so much money, they push it into the bank accounts and they won't have to do anything. Whereas 10 grand would be the flag. So they'd have to start putting in smaller amounts, which is a lot more painful, a lot slower, a lot harder. But my kind of like theory is, well, it actually just standardized Bitcoin into the economy, doesn't it? Because it's now an asset. I kind of going, it's part of the furniture. It's here. It's not going away. So it is almost acceptance that Bitcoin is inevitable, and they've accepted it, but they just want to get their tax out of it.
Yeah.
Well, they want the surveillance, don't they? Because I think why this legislation got received so badly by Bitcoin is just because I don't think most people know this even exists for fiat now. And it's just the fact that it happens completely behind the scenes, because every bank account or any financial account already has all this information on. In any transaction you do over $10,000, this happens. A report, a fraud flag will get sent. The tax office will get one, and the fraud office will get one, whatever your nation version is. So it's IRS on here.
Well, in theory, it should be coming up to about 100 grand now, based upon inflation. So that amount should have scaled up, but they've basically made it painful, which, when we start talking about the $600 surveillance, makes it even more ridiculous, because they brought this in for high amounts. This is for cartels, this is for the mafia. It isn't for you because you sold a sofa on Craigslist and they want the profit off you. So it should be closer to 100 grand now.
Actually, that's supposed to be for like houses, really, isn't it? It's like very, very large transactions.
It's for like cocaine. It's for bank robberies. It's for cocaine. It's for people smuggling. It's for illicit profits. It's where you need to like get it into bank accounts to try and clean it. So it's to stop it going in, not 10K.
Yeah.
But it's I think people are just waking up to the fact that the existing banking system, people have no idea what happens in the background, right? It's people think that they can earn money, send money around, make certain profits on certain shares, and then when their tax return comes around, it's like, oh, do I even need to put that profit or loss on? I can just leave it off, maybe. And it's a case.
I always find it amazing that like
they already know that they know how much tax you owe. They just haven't told you.
That's the thing in America. It's going to a separate point, but they say, "Oh, tell us how much tax you owe. You've got to work it out." But it's like you send something and they go, "No, that isn't the right amount." Or why the fuck didn't you just send the bill in the first place?
Yeah, and it's worse.
It's like a check and balance, isn't it? Ultimately.
Yeah. Well, they don't just. Well, it's not even just a check and balance. Unfortunately, it's no, that's the wrong amount. So here's 100 grand fine and fucking 3 years in prison. That's tax.
Well, yeah.
You go, what the fuck, dude? Like, it could have been an accident, right? Like, some people will be doing it on purpose. Some people will think, well, how are they going to know? And it's a case of, well, they know because you got KYC'd and AML'd, and behind the scenes, every single transaction over certain amounts literally gets sent to the tax office. They have records of every large transaction you have ever made.
But it's actually, they could just go, here's a calculator on our website, enter in these are some examples of those, these are some examples of those, these are some examples, please enter your figures and we'll calculate it for you. But it's like, no, figure out with a pen and paper. If you get it wrong, we're going to put you in prison.
Yeah. What they could do,
I mean, we started doing it
using your government ID, right? You could log into your government ID with your tax return, and they could just tell you. They could go, we can see you've got activity here, 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 and here on these banks. Is that correct? If this is all correct, you owe this. Is there anything else?
Yeah.
And you can like, largely, they're probably going to be 90% right, aren't they? And you go, yeah, you've got it. I owe that. And it wouldn't be a huge thing, but I think they like the fact that it makes you do it. You have
could even be multiple choice. If there's your real answer, there's the one slightly below, and then there's the one slightly above, and you choose, pick and choose, and ultimately, we will be collecting either way. But it is that I think it's just I may have shared it in the group that they're now collecting on eBay and Airbnb stuff as well. So ultimately, that is going to be there. So even if you sell an old pair of shoes, which you will have paid tax on because that will have
No,
already been there.
it has to be over a certain amount in the UK. So I think it's if you're selling on second-hand items and you sell over £1,000, which, you know, if you're selling electronics, say it's like an old computer, an old switch, and whatever, it's all mounts up.
If you do enough of it, you know, the second-hand goods.
Yeah, so I think
you
you
know,
have got an allowance. So it's like the typical things which you get rid of in a year. You
yeah,
have got an allowance
I'm pretty
within the
sure that's
UK.
always been there. Because I remember back in the day, I was just selling stuff on eBay and I was just, yeah, like a cat on there. And then I sold a certain amount and then suddenly it went, you got to verify yourself now. You need to be a super seller. I'm like, what? It's like, oh, you sold over £1,000 worth of goods in a year. So
Yeah,
it basically means, oh, I got a KYC myself. And I didn't know it at the time. I was like 23 or something. But I'm pretty sure like the whole KYC and AML rules have always existed. Maybe they've just been even more strict, like in recent
yeah. Maybe
times.
Mm,
But it
it's
wasn't
not
a
really.
loophole before. You couldn't make £1 million on eBay and get away with it. Like they were reporting that back. Like
It's
they
not
were.
really
yeah,
publicized though. No one really knows about it. Like
No.
it's not really stated. Whereas I think they're stating it with the hope to getting more tax to make sure that people do pay their tax. You know, they could be selling stuff across Gumtree, mixed with eBay, mixed in with Facebook Marketplace. So, you know, there's all those things and they don't combine.
yeah,
Yeah, but I do like Marty's article here, right? Because it does just laugh in the face of it. Because I agree with what you're saying, right? Like, because the rules that exist in fiat are just being rolled out to Bitcoin. So actually, this isn't necessarily an attack on Bitcoin. It's just almost like accepting it as a genuinely financial instrument that should be just regulated the same as what fiat is. So it's just bringing it into the norms. But we shouldn't accept the norms. You know, the fact that $10,000 just goes from one person to another, that shouldn't have to be reported to the tax office and to essentially to the government. Because essentially what that is doing is it's assuming fault. It's assuming some type of criminal activity has happened. Because otherwise, why are you reporting on it? It's assuming guilt as opposed to assuming innocence. And what it should be is
yeah,
all our transactions should be private, right? They should be. And then if we are suspected of a crime, they should need a warrant to come into our bank account and check some high value transactions, right? It should be like searching your home. Search my bank account, fine, right? Because there's evidence I've committed financial crime. You've got a warrant. In that instance, I go, okay, you now have access to my bank account, so you can see what I've been doing because you think I'm guilty of tax fraud and I've underpaid my tax this year. You want to prove me wrong? Fine. But that isn't the world we live in. We live in a world
Well, yeah,
where the warrant, they have an unlimited warrant for everybody's money and they just look at it all day long. Everybody's transactions just open. It's like them walking in and out of our homes and just looking under the bed,
yeah.
looking in your bedside table drawer, going, just checking. Like there's nothing in it. Just checking. Just having a look. And then they
well,
just
yeah.
wander out again. And you go,
You're
what the
right.
fuck are you doing?
You end up we've ended up with an ever expanding government, just basically become overarching because we've allowed it to expand. You know, literally you're paying 50% in direct taxes to the government, and you can go, oh, you have to pay more council tax this year. Why?
Yeah.
Because we've overspent it. It's just like, but I'm already paying fucking 50%. Fuck off. And I'm also paying another 20, 30, maybe even 35% in second hand tax because I'm buying all these things which have got taxes on them as well. And then they're getting taxed, all their employees and so on. So you end up with this literally like knock-on effect, but you know, barely any money out of your pound is actually paying for a product anymore. And we've just this is, you know, part of where I just go. They talk about in the UK, but oh, B&H is collapsing. Like, well, how?
No,
How we're
it's never
giving it
been
so
better.
much money? You know, we give it so much money. We give each department so much money, but we're ending with councils going broke like Birmingham. We're ending with the NHS not being able to treat people with heart attacks within 8 hours, and it's just like, you know, this is a result. We've ended up with these supersized governments when it should be an absolute. You know, the government should be responsible for maybe setting up schools, maybe collecting your bins, and making sure the roads built, not for fucking surveillance and not for all the shit which we're ending up paying for.
Yeah.
And it's just fiat world, isn't it? But
Yeah.
this
Well,
is literally
they're not, no one's asking them to check all these bank accounts, are they? Obviously, we know what they do. They say it's for for fraud, and they say it's to stop terrorist
Exactly.
thing. But we know it's not. We know it's to make sure that people aren't being independent with their money. They want to know where all the money is, and they want to make sure they're getting their pound of flesh, and they're keeping as many people down as possible, because they make these tax laws for a reason, right? And they need to be able to enforce them. And if they just let the money run riot, they know that most people can go, these tax laws are not fair. I already pay my fair share tax all over the place, that is unavoidable. There's certain places where it's optional whether I pay it. So they make sure that they go, you know what, these optional places, we have so much surveillance all over them that you can choose not to pay it. But just know, we know. And we might not get you
Yeah.
this year or next year. We might not get you in 5 years, but we'll get you eventually. And that knock on the door might come. So you better pay it. That's why they're doing it, because they don't want too many people rising up, right? We're all crabs in the bucket. We're all freaking dragging each other down. And occasionally a crab gets out. And they don't want too many crabs getting out of the bucket. So that is fundamentally.
I totally agree. And I used to buy into the narrative previously before as well, because I've been using eBay since 2002. And I thought when they used to say, once you get to 10 items or more, we need to verify you because you may be selling stolen or fraudulent goods. And it's again,
Terrorist
it's like, oh
financing.
yeah. Yeah, of course, exactly.
That
But
is
no,
what the
really,
regulation says, right? The regulation they're following,
yeah,
that is what it says. So they're just passing that on.
yeah,
Because eBay didn't
but
think that, did you?
really,
They were
no,
told they had
exactly.
to think that. eBay would let you fucking
Yeah,
sell on there unverified forever. They didn't want to put that friction in, which is why there was no
yeah,
friction in the beginning. They're like, we just want people to buy and sell. It's regulation that made them go, no, over £1,000, the CEO of that company goes to
mm,
prison for decades if you don't put KOC and AML in. So they had to do it. They
yeah,
had to then just go, why are we putting this friction in? We have to explain it to the user. So they go, oh, that's the reason they gave you, because they didn't have one. They didn't think that. They just go, well, we've been told and we have to do it. So we've got to pass on a big reason to go, really sorry. We don't think you're a criminal, but can you give us your driving license, your passport, what's your name, date of birth? And we need to verify
yeah,
you. And in reality, all they're doing is logging you on some government database. So if you make too much profit on eBay, the fucking tax man wants his pound of flesh, doesn't he? He wants to keep you
yeah.
down.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think we could talk about this all day, but should we go back to the original story? So
Aqua Wallet.
Aqua Wallet. So I did look at this. I thought, oh, Aqua Wallet, this must be interesting. And I got everything you need from a Bitcoin wallet. Oh, great. Second picture, send and receive Tether USDT. And I was just like, ugh,
Hmm.
ugh. But then I did go, harness the power of Lightning. I kind of went, that's interesting. So I need a Lightning wallet because I was using Blue Wallet, but they stopped supporting. So for me, I'm thinking I'll have to suck up that they deal with Tether and maybe download this myself so I can have some sat sitting on my phone on my person when needed, maybe to tip people like Marty Bent because
Yeah.
he doesn't want to be flipping burgers.
yeah.
So what?
Well,
So Mr. This is probably more applicable for Mr. All In. What Lightning wallet do you use?
I use Blue Wallet. Um, that works really, really well. That's the one I've used for all my Bitcoin lessons. Every time someone completes that, I send them some sats
I
using.
thought you couldn't use it, or is it because you've got a Lightning node?
You can use it. What do you mean?
I don't
Why
know.
can't? Why couldn't you use it?
I thought they were stopping support or something like
No, weirdly, I think they were stopping support for your own node.
that. Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
They weren't fully
So
custodial
I
with it.
don't need it. Fuck this. It deals with Tether.
Yeah, no. I use Blue Wallet just because the problem is obviously that's the thing, right? Using custodial, it doesn't really matter. I don't think. Like, I obviously run my own node; it's all good. But the problem is like creating channels and getting a channel from your node to someone that you need to pay, and the people that I'm paying on Bitcoin lessons, like I have no relationship to them. So they could be anywhere in the world. And the odds on me having a Lightning channel from my node to them that was already set up is low. So using a custodial wallet is so much better because they obviously have their node is connected to everyone using it. So then when I need to send them literally sometimes 1,000 sats, 2,000 sats, which essentially is pennies largely. The only way of doing it is custodial. So it works really well. Blue Wallet works well. I think Aqua Wallet has just launched. I haven't downloaded it yet. I haven't started using it mainly because
I was going to say I haven't.
I was reading the comments and a lot of bugs. Some people even reporting they sent some Bitcoin to it, converted it to Lightning, and then it just disappeared. And so basically, it's Jan3 is the company that have made it. You know, the CEO is Samson Mao. So he's Jan3 are largely trying to get a nation state adoption. That is their mission over the next couple of years, is to get nations to adopt Bitcoin.
Okay.
And they've just released Aqua Wallet, released it on Jan 3rd on purpose, which is the proof of keys day. It's all good, like having another Lightning wallet out there. But yeah, I think Samson Mao is very closely aligned with Blockstream, so it does have Tether in it and it does have Liquid. Liquid is basically an alternative to Lightning. It's a different way. Essentially, it tokenizes your Bitcoin, which essentially Lightning does as well. It's not real Bitcoin once you go to layer 2. It's essentially you're using a token, and you could almost call it a shitcoin, but it's a shitcoin one-to-one with Bitcoin, right? Because it has to be, right? It's because you're not trading on the main chain. So, but you are kind of reserving some coins on Bitcoin and going, no, these are unspendable because they're being tokenized over here on layer 2. So say you had your 1,000 sats on Bitcoin layer 1, I kind of gray them out and tokenize them as 1,000 sats on Lightning. I send them around on Lightning. I send them to my person. Eventually, those tokens get stamped into a transaction some point on the main chain. Is part of a much bigger transaction because I didn't pay the fees, right? The fees would have been way more than the transaction. So eventually that happens. And then when that transaction happens, it comes back to my grayed out Bitcoin and goes, oh, these grayed out Bitcoin, those 1,000 tokens, those 1,000 Satoshis just got spent over here. So these are now gone. They get moved over here. They went in that transaction. It's all kind of, it sounds kind of shitcoiny, but that is what layer 2 kind of is, right? And you've got Liquid, which does something very similar, where you essentially send it Bitcoin, and it essentially tokenizes your Bitcoin and allows you to send it, and it's a competitor to Lightning, run by Blockstream, which we all actually have direct access to it because Blockstream make Jade, and I'm sure if you've been setting up your Jade, you've seen Liquid on there, and so essentially it would be nice for Jade to also support Lightning because like this Aqua wallet, it supports Bitcoin. Tether is in there because you know what, like for a nation state, I kind of get what Samson's doing here. You got your Bitcoin, then you got, so Bitcoin is layer 1. You got your 2 layer 2 solutions. So you got Bitcoin Liquid and Bitcoin Lightning. And then you do have Tether in there as well. And you go, if you are really risk adverse and you kind of want to be pegged to fiat for a bit, but you want to stay in the Bitcoin land, shove it in Tether then. And essentially you're pegged to the US dollar. I get maybe for fucking nation states and stuff, maybe they don't want to have their full allocation, fucking 100% Bitcoin straight away. So I get it. Maybe it's a trader's wallet as well. You know, like obviously like people trading in and out of various things. If they want to trade Bitcoin's highs and lows, if they think they're good at that, you can within this wallet you can have Bitcoin, trade it into Tether if you think it's going to down, and then once it's down, like you think it's going to peak again, you trade back into Bitcoin. Okay, maybe.
I've heard a lot about Tether and not really looked into it much, but from a privacy perspective, I've heard that it is, of course, the better shitcoin that's out there ultimately, because when people try to use the FUD of Bitcoin being used by drug addicts or people using it for illicit transacting in funds, then I always say, well, it's not, because everything is super transparent and on the blockchain. So yeah, maybe there is a use case for certain alternative shitcoins that are out there.
You're not getting confused with Monero, are you? This isn't Monero.
No.
Tether's just purely it's just as open as all the other coins. It's just a stable coin. So
Okay.
It's pegged to the US dollar, so it won't go up or down in price, is what it means. It has no privacy,
Okay.
it has no additional privacy or security on it. It's just you're basically trading into dollars. You're back into cash, but you're not.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
you're not in fiat land. You are still in Bitcoin land by trading into Tether. So it's very easy to switch back into Bitcoin with minimal fuss. You don't need a bank account essentially. So this app works.
Is Monero therefore greater privacy?
Yeah, Monero is the private coin, yeah. But then that essentially is a shit coin. We don't know the supply, it has variable price. You wouldn't trade into that as like a stable place that trade you're making, right? You're trading into a shit coin there.
It's exactly.
Whereas with Tether, you're trading into, okay, Bitcoin's done its thing. I think it's gonna come pull back. I'll trade into Tether, which essentially is to trade into cash, sit out, let the pullback happen if you think that's going to do that, and then go back into Bitcoin later.
Yeah.
So it's essentially selling into cash. That's what you're doing, but you're selling into a crypto version of cash.
Cool.
Enough about shitcoining.
So let's talk about another shitcoin company then.
Yeah, let's talk about regulations again.
Yeah.
A new test. So in the UK, we've got to pass some tests when you want to trade crypto. So whether it's on Coinbase, Kraken, Revolut, or whoever else. So I've done this on my Revolut account, and it asks you a series of questions to allow you to trade or ultimately do some trading. So I think you can get them restricted. Well, I say them restricted, but not really that closely monitored. If you answer them saying you're basically high stakes, blah, 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 this person on Twitter has filled in a questionnaire and you can't place any orders, you can't sell, he can't put any
Can't buy,
stop
can't
losses.
sell, basically.
Yeah, you can't put any stop losses in.
His account is frozen ultimately, and so it is a strange one, isn't it? Because ultimately, he's probably answered the questions truthfully in terms of his finances, in terms of his knowledge, and Coinbase have therefore said, "Great, thanks for that. We don't think that you're worthy enough to be able to continue the types of trades that you're doing." And as Mr. Orlean is highlighting, absolutely, Coinbase's support is saying lie.
Yeah, because I think it asks whether you earn over £100,000. I think that's one of the critical questions.
Is it?
Yeah.
This is why, because when I first saw this, right, I just went, these questions, they are so noddy. Like no one's got these questions wrong. I nearly got one wrong on purpose. But there is a question in there that says like your net worth or like roughly how much you trade
and how many assets you have.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
And I just kind of I even in their list, I downplayed it a little bit, going, I don't want to freaking highlight myself. But it was still like not in their early categories. So I was like, I'll just go that one because I don't want to reveal my whole hand here. And so I just went through and it was a piece of piss. But so are they saying then that if you say like the first option, which I think is just basically less than 100K, are you just banned? Are you banned from the account if you don't have 100?
I don't think it should be banned. I think it's restricted. But this person, he's probably bought quite a lot of Bitcoin, and they're saying you can't buy any more Bitcoin this year or within 12 months, and that's my suspicion. And obviously, since it's just been rolled out, it's going to be quite buggy. This. So yeah, if you are trading and obviously down to your risk appetite, maybe quite bend the truth about the questions if you do want to buy some. But obviously, we can't advise you to this because this is not financial advice. This is the 4Bs where we talk about shit. And we're all conspiracy theorists, but we do have Miss No Show, who is our ESG director.
Which was another Ponzi scheme in itself. Yeah.
How dare you?
That is super interesting though. I wonder, because I just assumed when I saw this tweet, I was like, this guy's just an idiot, right? The questions are super easy, right? It pretty much just goes, are crypto assets volatile? Like, what does it mean if
Well,
if an
I
asset
think it's more for
goes
the,
down?
isn't it for the exchanges to be able to cover themselves in the event of perhaps when someone maybe stakes and goes
No,
into DeFi
no,
or
this is
goes into
regulation.
a shitcoin?
No, it's
Well,
about
no,
everything.
This is
well,
regulation.
that too.
No, it's only
That,
regulation. Like this doesn't. They got told to do this. Like this is what we just talked about like 3 months ago, where they went. The
yeah,
regulator said you have to check that people know what they're doing, and they put 25 questions out. Like you have to ask these questions, otherwise you are not compliant to these financial regulations. It's the same as
yeah,
KYC and
yeah,
AML. So they are not doing this for any other reason other than the fact they've been told to.
yeah.
Which is why I think people are going, it's basically buggy and who knows what's going on. Because the rules are just
Mm,
so like, because as we know with all regulation, right, they don't tell you black and white. They just tell you the gray, which is you need to ask these
mm.
questions and make sure to like all good endeavors, they use words like that, that
Yeah,
like
best
naive,
endeavors. That's the
yeah,
one. Yeah.
best endeavors, yeah. Naive investors aren't like manipulated and taken advantage of you like trading in this asset. And you go, well, how the fuck, what does that mean? Right? How are we meant to protect the world from like, and obviously like the example is used literally in this tweet as well, which is, well, I can bet my money on a football game. I can go into a casino and just gamble all my money.
Yeah.
Is the casino doing best endeavors to protect me from blackjack or from in the roulette wheel? No, they are not, are they? They clearly let me. I could walk in with my entire net worth and gamble it on red or black and lose it, and no one is saying a word, and no one is changing regulations to stop that, right? Everyone is very happy that that system works. Whereas suddenly the crypto world, which really by that they want to block Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure they're fine people investing in crypto because they know they're going to lose their money. They're trying to block Bitcoin, and it's, oh no, if you're going to invest in Bitcoin, we need to protect you. We need to ask you these 25 questions before you put your money into this because we don't want to get you don't want you to get hurt. And it's just it's more surveillance. And it's bizarre if they are starting to limit people based on our, because I remember actually in the regulations, right, it said you can't gamble or you can't buy more than something like 10 or 20% of your net worth. So I wonder if that's what's happened, where they've looked into this person's account, like you said, this person has bought a lot of Bitcoin recently. They've then told them what their net worth is. They've worked out the two percentages and gone, well, we know your Bitcoin balance roughly because we've got access to part of it, and you've just told us what your net worth is. You've got too much Bitcoin based on your net worth, so therefore we're going to stop you buying any more. Maybe that's what's happening. And the only reason that I haven't come across this is because number one, I use multiple exchanges, so they don't have a full view. But I also lied about my net worth. So it's like the percentages were okay for me and I got through. Because the questions are piss easy, but I wonder if that 10-20% thing is coming in and they just haven't
Yeah.
figured out the error messages yet because he's just going trade. It says on his screen, trading is not allowed. I wonder if that's because, not because you got any of the questions wrong. It's because you've already bought your allocation of Bitcoin this year.
Mm.
Like, holy shit. Is that what is that? This story suddenly went from being like me laughing at it to this is big. Are they blocking people buying Bitcoin? Because you've brought too much this year based on your net worth. So we're going to block you for your own safety. This is them literally stemming the flow of money into Bitcoin by restricting how much of people's net worth can go into it. You can't go all in. No more Mr. All-Ins. Unless you lie. You just got to lie and say, my net worth is 100
I was
million.
just about to say that.
Well, we don't advise lying.
No.
We fucking expect it.
Talking of lying and being compromised, this is breaking news that the SEC Twitter account was hacked, and it was compromised to put out a tweet saying that the ETF had been approved. So that went up, and then obviously was quickly taken down, and there has been a crash in the price. I say a crash, it's not really a crash, but a spike trending downwards, let's say, but that's what it's been based off. So that is breaking news as we speak and record right now. That 126.
Oh man, I thought someone had just changed their name to like the US Securities and Exchange Commission, and it wasn't the official account, but it actually was the official account that literally said.
Yeah, someone sent me a message saying, "Good luck," and then they said, "Oh, fuck, the SEC's been hacked." So they're very gutted that that it didn't happen, because I think he's been getting very excited for the last few months.
Yeah,
Never mind.
There was like a couple of grand spike, and then bizarrely, once it got revealed as fake, a 4 grand regression. So we went up 2K, and then when it got found out that it was fake, we go down 4K.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gee, that all happened while we were on air as well, like recording.
Yeah, exactly.
See, like Bitcoin Twitter, like Bitcoin, it doesn't fucking stop for anyone, doesn't it? We just jump on for an hour, and already we've missed a fake listing of the SEC from the SEC Gov Twitter. Like someone hacked it purely to fucking send this ETF news, clearly trading that news. If they want to find out who did that, right, go and have a look who profited from the peak and the drop.
But this is where I was just about to.
Who longed it and who shorted it. It's fucking them.
Yeah.
They're the fuckers that just did that.
You know, you're banning people from answering questions, but really it's the people that are actually in, and they're the ones that you need to look at, and who's profiting from it.
As always.
Should we race through these last couple of stories? So obviously did we touch on, I can't get on the regulation, the US regulation.
Oh, we just talked about that one.
So yeah, that one's done. Federic tulips again.
I don't even know why we're talking about this. I mean, it's funny because it's another tulip. So it's someone called Gordon Johnson, who's some kind of like Wall Street analyst. He talks about not ego driven at all. I wish you all the best in Bitcoin, blah, 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 blah. It would literally cause a literal collapse of the USA by hyperinflation, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I love the USA. And it's just like, he's a simp. He's a fucking moron. And he's also comparing to a pattern of tulip prices which went up within a year versus how many cycles are we on? 4 now? I always forget. So yeah, he kind of like ruins his whole argument with that picture. You're kind of going, okay, you don't like Bitcoin, blah blah blah. He hasn't really said anything in that text, apart from he loves USA and he doesn't want to destroy the dollar. But then, yeah, he destroys the whole argument by posting something which happened within a year. Now, what's really funny about him, which I read in the comments, is he is ranked number 8,325th out of 8,665 Wall Street analysts, and also 32,539th out of 36,796 experts. So not particularly high. So he's telling you what to do, but he's not very high.
Average return is on per stock.
Oh, this is brilliant. Minus 9.4%. So let's listen to good old Gordon, who will get you to lose your money faster than inflation. On his minus 9.4%.
Even if you're on a Bitcoin standard, this guy loses you money.
Yeah, he's an absolute fucking moron, but let's listen to him compare Bitcoin to tulips. I don't know why this has got so much traction. Is he on TV or something, this guy?
He must be. Yeah.
Yeah,
But how is he on TV when he's got such a bad record?
Why? Because he's a simp for the US dollar, isn't he? But what I
Yeah.
like, right, is there's a reply to him, right, which basically just goes, all right, fine. If that's true, then why is the SEC entertaining allowing a Ponzi scheme fraud tulip vehicle to be delivered to the America via BlackRock Fidelity through an ETF, right? And his answer is ask them. Does not change one thing I said. The US government currently is not comprised of our brightest, and they are bought and paid for. So using the government accepts it, so it's okay excuse is quite weak, right? And the second I read that, right, I just went, he's in this stage where, admittedly, you've always got to remember that some people are just, they're bought and paid for. Just as he's accusing the government, he might be bought and paid for, and he knows the truth. He's just pretending to not to know it. But I think he's
No,
in
he's
the,
too much of a moron.
yeah.
He
So
would
he's
have a
more
much
likely to be
better record.
yeah. So he's more likely to be in the camp of, oh, the government are just incompetent. So even though the left hand is saying, oh, we're going to approve this asset as a ETF that can be put into pension funds, but you've got the right hand, which is like Elizabeth Warren saying it's a fraud, it's a Ponzi, it's boiling the ocean, it's used for terrorist funding. His answer to the left and right hands not making sense is the government is incompetent. They don't communicate, which is why, even though they're telling with the right hand, Bitcoin is the worst thing ever, the left hand is going, let's allow this to be put into pension funds, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The real answer is it's conspiracy. I mean, it's not incompetence, it's conspiracy. They know exactly both things can be true. And the reason why Bitcoiners know both things can be true is that their hatred of Bitcoin is true. And they are absolutely communicating this with the SEC. And the SEC are only doing what the central government are telling them to do, which up until now has been deny, 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 deny. Now they have got their shit in order and they have their best and most controlled company that can run ETFs ever that will absorb the majority of the volume, BlackRock, to come in. It's taken them a while to get BlackRock into position to have an ETF. Before, with all these little companies, they're like, fuck these little companies. They're not having their ETF. We're going to slam Bitcoin down into the ground. We're going to keep fucking fudding it and hope people don't buy it because we don't want people fleeing our money. But then they managed to go, you know what? It's not going away, is it? What's the best way to beat someone? If you can't beat them, join them. And that's what they've done. They've gone, fuck it. Let's get BlackRock to make an ETF.
Yeah.
With that name, the majority of the money will flow into BlackRock. It's going to be paper Bitcoin. We can control the price. We control the coins. Control the keys. So suddenly you go, right, yeah. If you're a bit of a simpleton, you look at this and go, it's incompetence. They both hate Bitcoin on one side of government and love Bitcoin on the other, and they're just not talking because they're not joined up. But once you put the pieces together, you realize now this is a conspiracy. Both things can be true at the same time. It can be part of the same plan. They outwardly hate it, and then they pretend to love it over here because really what they're trying to do is co-opt that asset. Because the ETF, as we know, the ETF is a trap, right? Any money you put into that ETF over the long term, it's the same as putting into a pension. You might think you've got Bitcoin gains, but go on then, sell that asset. How much are they going to tax you on it and all that kind of stuff, right? Try and leave the country and access that ETF money from El Salvador or from Serbia. Oh, you're not a US citizen anymore. That's the
Serbia was blocked IP address immediately.
Two things which are really interesting about this is MBIT in bold, which says which would likely cause a literal collapse of the USA by hyperinflation. It's just like it's going that way anyway. It's just going to get sped up. And it's pretty much what Bitcoiners agree on, that it needs to end because it's causing all these wars, it's causing impoverishment, it's causing people to be put down and kept down. And the one which I always love is a Charlie Munger quote. So Bitcoin is rat poison. So when I hear this, I always ask myself, who is the rat then? Because if Bitcoin is secure, who is the rat? Is it the US dollar? And did he actually mean something different by it and couldn't say it openly because of how he worked and the fact he was an investor for Berkshire Hathaway and ultimately was owned by the government?
Yeah, exactly.
Because rat poison makes no sense because Bitcoin would be a rat, it'd be a pest, wouldn't it? Rat poison.
That, like, gold was rat poison to rhinestones and to agri beads, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but
so
rat
when you
poison,
actually, rat
Like
poison, when you think about it.
yeah, he's saying Bitcoin is rat poison. It's just like, well, but you're saying Bitcoin's bad. You're saying that Bitcoin's got a purpose then. It's taking something out. And it's maybe a bit of backhander, which no one's really appreciated.
Correct.
Yeah. He doesn't mean it as a compliment. He means it as it's as useful as rat poison, as in, what are you going to do with some rat poison? Fucking eat it. It's going to kill you, right?
Yeah, it's going to kill the dollar.
Yeah, that's what the meme is.
Ultimately, the dollar is, as like every other currency, although it is clearly the strongest of the 160 that are out there, it's always going to go to zero. It's just being sped up by the fact that the hardest money known to man is alive and kicking, 15 years old. Right, let's move on. Next story is Hack of the Week. So, buying Bitcoin with a compromised wallet.
Yeah.
So, Dende Hodl.
Yeah, we've got a poor guy here. Yeah, Dende Hodl is we're selling some Bitcoin. Naughty. Don't know why he's selling Bitcoin just before the ETF approval, but whatever. He's selling on Hodl Hodl, which is one of these peer-to-peer exchanges, right? Where people can buy and sell Bitcoin from each other. And you've got someone here that wanted to buy some Bitcoin. He doesn't say exactly how much, but essentially he goes, okay, fine, I'll sell the Bitcoin to you. He receives the fiat, and so he sends the Bitcoin to his wallet, and then straight away the guy goes, oh yeah, it says I received it, but then straight away it just got sent out again. So my balance is zero. What's happened there? What have you done? And obviously the guy, Dende Hodl was just going, well, you must have a compromised wallet because I sent you the Bitcoin. And the fact that you got swept instantly is nothing to do with me. I can't send it from your wallet. It just means you've likely downloaded a compromised wallet and it has just been waiting for any transaction to hit it, and it just sweeps it straight off. Just automated, built into the wallet, and it sent it straight to the hacker's address instead of yours. So unfortunately, thanks for buying Bitcoin from me, but you have no Bitcoin. You just lost it. And it's nothing to do with me. So sucks to be you. And apparently they're looking at it and they're going, it looks like it's what was it? I think Exodus wallet they're talking about in here. And there's a chance that he downloaded a fake Exodus wallet. Apparently this is the first time he'd used the wallet. So I'm guessing he's probably on Android, because Android, very easy to get apps approved on Android. Google don't really do much checking. They just pretty much approve everything. Whereas on Apple, it is harder to get scam wallets put on. They do a lot of verification. For someone that's had a few apps on the App Store, a pain in the ass. I've had every app I've ever put on stuck in the verification process for months, where they're double checking everything that I've said is in the app, and they're going, well, what's this bit of code? What's this? What's this? And because they think that maybe the app is doing something behind the scenes that it shouldn't be. And whereas on Android, everything just gets approved. So that's what's happened here. I think someone's put a fake Exodus wallet onto the Android App Store, which has a hidden bit of code in it, which sweeps the wallet the second any money gets put on. And this poor guy has been swept. Just another reminder to be very, very careful about wallets. Don't put too much money on a wallet that you're not willing to lose. And I guess the lesson that I would probably learn from something like this, if you do download a new wallet, maybe just send it a negligible amount of sats just to see what happens. Because the likelihood is the code that's sat in the background, it will sweep any sats straight off. So send it like a $5 or something, right? And just see what happens. If it gets swept,
Yeah,
then
I mean, this is practice for like your ledger as well. You know, when I transfer money to my ledger, I always transfer a small amount. I take the hit with the fee just to check it works.
yeah, well, that's that. You're testing the address there, aren't you? In this instance, you haven't tested the address yet when you fire up a new wallet. But what you want to make sure is that when you do send to that address, does it get swept off? That isn't something I've ever checked for. But this is the use case as to why you would, because I'm
Yeah,
guessing if he's going on to Hodl Hodl, right, he's probably buying at least £500 worth, likely, and that's just been swept from him. He's lost that. So that was an expensive lesson for him to learn. If he'd have sent a tenner to his own wallet already, that probably would have got swept, and he'd gone, oh, there's something up with this wallet. He could have deleted it and then being a little bit more accurate about which wallet he then downloaded. Because this is the problem. Bitcoin isn't a scam, but people know there's a lot of money in Bitcoin and scamming. So there's going to be a lot of fake wallets out there, a lot of hacks. Gee, we've got to be super careful. Just whenever you're putting Bitcoin onto a phone, it's so careful. Like bizarrely, I can't believe I've been relatively reckless, I think, with my downloading of Bitcoin apps and sending and receiving Bitcoin. I've done quite hundreds of transactions over the years. Everything's gone fine. The biggest problem I've had with using Bitcoin wallets is that the little amount of money that I had in them, because I had it in there for so long, like the amount grew to an amount that I would have been sad about losing. So I suddenly had to get it off. And that's the only problem I've had. I've never been hacked. I've never been swept. So I think just it's like with anything, right? It's the whole like be your own bank, and it's when you're downloading a wallet off the internet or off an app store, don't do it quickly. Make sure you're careful. Verify it properly. Even though you're only going to put in maybe a couple of £100, still be careful. This guy wasn't, and he lost it. And the likelihood is that app is now being deleted. It's been reported for fraud. Google are taking it down. But I can guarantee there'll be another 15 waiting for pending approval, and they'll pop up tomorrow. Then they'll get deleted. Another 20 will come on. Right? It's just Google will never stop the problem. So just be wary. Last story. So VanEck have announced something nice, although it has been met with mixed reviews from the Bitcoin Twitter community, is that they have pledged that they will donate 5% of their Bitcoin ETF profits, if approved, which the fact they're already at this point suggests they really think it's getting approved now, to support Bitcoin core devs. Your tireless dedication to decentralization innovation to the cornerstone of the Bitcoin ecosystem, and we're here to support it. More details to come. So what do you think of that? 5% of their profits from this ETF from VanEck going to Bitcoin core devs?
So I watched. Go for it.
I was just going to say it's good, but it's still Bitcoin, isn't it?
No, they'll be donating. They're not donating their ETF ETF shares to these devs.
No. I mean, as in that their business is still based around paper Bitcoin.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But then
so it's good.
The
It's good
Bitcoin
for the
core devs
network.
are getting real money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, ultimately, you're still going to have like the Bitcoin fees. You're still going to have the fact that and the block rewards and so on. The miners are going to get their Bitcoin bought off them and so on. And then you're also going to have this 5% donation, which is great because they're expecting probably to make a lot of money. But it's still encouraging people around the the paper Bitcoin route. However, you have got the fact that you got the donation, which hopefully will fund more. So we'll start looking at more layer 2 stuff, which I think needs to innovate in order to move Bitcoin along. Because obviously we don't want to touch the core code anymore. And then additionally, you have also got the benefit, as we've spoken about the ETFs, is the education which is going to give to people, or exposure. I suppose exposure then education. So like all these people who wouldn't touch Bitcoin before, they're going to buy it, and then they're going to start going, oh, maybe I want to read about Bitcoin because I've had all these green arrows. Maybe I'll read a bit about it and see what it's about. You know, maybe I'll read the Bitcoin stuff and I'll go, oh fucking hell, why have I got my money on in ETFs and not just in Bitcoin? So I think some good will come, but it does worry me, the whole thing, and that's why I'm quite negative towards even though they're donating money.
Yeah. Well, I read the comments and thought very similar, but ultimately, I do think that this whole thing has to pan out. We have to do things like this. So it's kind of like trial and error. Let's see what happens. If a good thing comes from it, fantastic. If not, we've tried it and we've learned from it. But it's interesting to see that they have pledged for 10 years that they will be continuing to pay the the devs as well. And I guess 10 years in tech is a long time. So let's see if they hold on to their pledge. And who knows, Van Eck may not even be here because in this whole ETF race for an ETF, there will be winners and losers. And I watched a really interesting podcast where it was two guys who were ETF experts on Natalie Brunel's podcast, and they've been following it because there's a lot of firsts in this ETF approval race, and the fact that the SEC, rather than just saying it's going to go to one, looks like they're lining up for all of the players in the marketplace. I think the numbers, the 13 funds in total, 11 or 13 number escapes me right now. But if everybody does do this, this is like a real turning point and a real pivot. And I would definitely recommend people to watch that podcast, because for an hour they talk about the history of ETFs, why this is so interesting. But this again is another interesting angle in terms of what's coming about with the approval of the ETFs.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, right? I don't really care about what the company does. If they could be a bank, right? And if they just went, we're going to give 5% of our profits to core devs, I'd be like, fuck yeah. I hate your core business, but if you're giving 5% of profits to core devs, let's go, right? But then there is a counterpoint to that, which is, well, hold on, if they are donating and it is a sizable amount of money, does that give them an element of control? Does that give them influence over the core devs? And obviously we're concerned about the ETF, and one of the concerns is that they end up forking Bitcoin to some proof of stake version. So if money is coming from the ETF players to the core devs, and they indicate we want proof of stake, and the developers go no, they go fine, funding is now being pulled. Does that then give them influence to go, oh shit, there's a lot of core devs that are relying on that funding? Maybe they code proof of stake because they need the funding, right? And it's don't become reliant on something that isn't going to be always around or is there for the right reasons. So I see that as a downside, right? I see the enemy. I don't think Van Eck actually as a company is the enemy. I think they actually are quite sound Bitcoin enthusiasts. So I think them saying 5%, I take it on face value. I think they are genuinely trying to go, we're going to make a shit ton of money off this ETF when it gets approved, and we're going to give 5% back to the people that have made all this happen. And I don't think they want anything for it. I don't think they want any influence. If this was BlackRock doing something like this, I would be more scared. I wouldn't like BlackRock directly funding our Bitcoin devs.
Just say, but Van Eck partly owned by BlackRock.
Probably. Like,
Everyone is, aren't they? Ultimately,
if VanEck are publicly listed, which I'm sure they are, then I'm sure BlackRock own 10% of them.
yeah,
So that is the problem. Fucking all roads lead back to BlackRock, right? So
yeah.
you only there's like it's like the fucking what is it the seven everyone's 7 bits of bacon back to Kevin Bacon. You so basically like what is it like that you can literally there's no more than 6 people between you and Kevin Bacon. It's
Oh,
like
seven
that's
degrees.
the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. That's it. Yeah, and whereas with BlackRock, it's like the 2 degrees of BlackRock. It's literally
Yeah.
just well the two companies of BlackRock. Because you go to one company and go, I don't even need to have multiple jumps here to get to BlackRock. It's just from company A. Oh, what's their shareholdings? BlackRock's in there. Boom, got it. It was 1 degree, right? And maybe you need to go, oh, VanEck isn't doesn't have BlackRock on their board because they're a small company. You go, oh right, okay. But are they part of a group of shares in an ETF in some shape or form? Oh yeah, they are. They're in this group, this ETF here. Oh right, who owns the ETF? BlackRock. Boom, there you go. So whether VanEck are in this ETF owned by BlackRock is very influential on their share price. So they get kicked out of that, then their share price goes down. So yeah, BlackRock are around the corner at every fucking turn. But I think overall this is a good news story, right? Bitcoin core devs they get ignored all the time, but the Bitcoin miners, as you listed there, right? There's the block reward and there's the fees in the blocks. That just goes to miners. The devs get none of this. Uh, Most devs, I think they probably do a bit of mining on the side, but that isn't their core
Yeah.
business. They code, right? And Bitcoin coders, there was no reward for coding Bitcoin. Zero. All that happens is you put your change request into the GitHub and you put it forward for consensus and go, do you want to make this change? And 99% of the time, people say no. 1%, people go, yes, it gets approved, it gets put on. You then get added to the change log as someone that's added some code to Bitcoin. So you get some kudos.
Mm.
Kudos doesn't put food on the table, right? You don't get any money. There's no like, oh, you got a change request put on Bitcoin. Congratulations. Here's a Bitcoin. No. None of that. There's no change request reward. There's no. So the Bitcoin core devs are largely voluntarily coding Bitcoin for free. And with more people like this, because it's Bitcoin Brink, isn't it? Bitcoin Brink are the company that essentially are the foundation that seems to be supporting Bitcoin developers. It's a nice central hub for them to collect the money and then distribute it as they see fit for the people that are valuable to Bitcoin. And I'm assuming they have some type of validation process of who's contributing to Bitcoin, who deserves the funding. I have seen them before, so I think it's a good thing. Let's fund them because Jesus, they not much money goes their way, and we've got these Michael Saylors of the world. Yeah, we need to get Saylor to throw 1,000 Bitcoin into this Bitcoin brink. Like Jesus Christ, guys. I know he's trying to get 210,000 Bitcoin, 1% of the supply, but how about throw some of the Bitcoin core devs? Let's make some Bitcoin core devs rich, like proper rich. But anyway,
Is it the right incentives for them though? That's the thing.
I suppose you want to keep them a little bit poor so they keep working. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
I think like we came on though, there's certain people though, I think they will always work, right?
yeah.
Like we came on before we press record, there's certain people that we work with that it almost doesn't matter about their net worth. They're going to be
Yeah.
worker bees. They need to work, and I think to be fair, a lot of the Bitcoin core devs are stupidly rich already. Like they really are. A lot of the devs that are still putting code requests and submitting bugs and doing comments, and they've been in Bitcoin for 10 years plus. So it would stand to
It's
reason
for
that
the love.
they are ridiculously rich. And if anything, I think what they're doing is protecting their investment, right? They are rich. They've
Mm.
largely set their life out, but they're now holding the majority of their net wealth in Bitcoin. So it is still in their interests to maintain the code and keep it safe, because that's what their net worth is being held in. But I think we need incentives to bring new people in. It should be, if you can work on Bitcoin and be impactful and fix bugs and do good code, you can earn hundreds of thousands a year to do that. That should be the thing, right? You should be able to do that, just like working at Microsoft or Facebook or Google, Amazon. It's a very high paid job. At the moment, a Bitcoin core dev, it isn't a high paid job. It just isn't. It's pretty much, it's a volunteer role that you do for the love of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And we need to make the incentives a bit better there. We need to pay them better. It's a step forward, right? I'm not going to hate on a step forward towards that, where someone's going, I give 5% of my profits towards funding that. Sounds good to me. Provided there's no strings attached.
Well, yeah, that's the one. Let's see how it plays out, and if it reappears in the 4Ps podcast, because that is a wrap. So that was pod 126, 126 of the 4Bs, bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit, brought to you by Mr. Rollin, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and Mrs. No Show. Still, however many shows in, still no show. Peace.